we're not really like doing a panel for this one. Like, they said I could just chill and you guys can just ask questions instead of me asking questions, which is so nice. But yeah.
But until you have questions, we can ask each other questions.
Yes. Now I'm suddenly, I'm like, oh, what do I want to know?
Julie, where'd you get that fabulous jacket?
I don't know. I wish I did. I've had it in my closet for like many, many years, and I think I've worn it once. Thank you. Thank you, thank you.
Yeah, if you guys want to line up and, or just run on up here, I don't know. Is anyone in charge here?
Anybody have a mic? Oh, here we come. Here we go. Yay!
What was writing that, so, for example, it's all for all of you. What was each other's writing that you read for each other that you were like, wow, she left her heart on the page?
Ooh. Well, I would say, so Carina's pride and joy is the Klaus teenage hope father-daughter relationship. And she wrote this fight between them in season 5 of the originals, which is what, 502?
Episode 2.
Yeah, which is, what was the line that you love so much? Like a father.
Sorry I interrupted. Your murder orgy was a really good one.
But like it was really, you know, we all have complicated relationships with our parents, and she was working some stuff out on the page.
I have daddy issues. You could say it. It's
Yeah,
fine.
well,
We're not live on Nina's TikTok.
yeah. And I just remember reading it and being like, oh, now that is a really, really vivid, personal scene. And but that's how she writes everything. You know, everything she does is very personal and has a lot of meaning put into it. And then Marguerite. I mean, every time I read Marguerite, I fall a little bit more in love with her just because she's such a hidden, quiet talent. Like, this woman was on Broadway as an actress. She can sing, she can dance. She was on television, and now she's also a spectacular writer. And she wrote this movie script, like, 15 years ago, 17 years ago, a long effing time ago. Never got made, but we had this idea about doing an updated version of Emma, the Jane Austen Emma, like Clueless was, but like for the next generation. And she just went off and she wrote it. She'd never written a movie before, and we got the script and we all read it, and we were like, this is like the best movie we've ever read. And it just was so clear that she was such a thoughtful writer and really had yet another gift to add to her repertoire.
Well, it's hard for me because, again, I've read, like, basically, you both are cut from the same cloth of writing from your heart and your emotion, which is what makes it so vivid on the page. So any script that you, especially Julie will sometimes put her hand through other writers' scripts to kind of unify the voice and do it, but especially ones where it's Julie's own writing from the jump. Any script that has your name on it, you're like, yes, you just eat it up. You can feel everything. And the same with you, Carina. It's that thing. Can you remember that line about a father hurts you?
My first episode, Haley asked Klaus, why do you call him your father? He's not your, or about Michael. Why do you call him your father? He's not your real dad. And he said, he's done damage only a father could do.
I mean, that's a great one.
That's a good one.
And they're one of a billion. So these guys are amazing.
Thank you.
I think, hold on, I'm gonna answer it too.
Sorry.
Don't run away.
I'm so sorry.
I was giving you
No, I want to talk about you guys too. I think the first piece of Marguerite's writing that I ever read was Après moi le déluge, which was
Diana Demijohn.
yeah, which was an early originals episode that just was so. I just remember scenes between Davina and Marcel. I can't think about it specifically, but they were just so vivid and beautiful. And I also want to shout out that, you know, it was a highly anticipated thing for us to have Caroline come to the originals. And Marguerite wrote her first appearance, and it was just a joy to read as a fan of the Vampire Diaries because she just knew Caroline Forbes' voice in her soul. and this very new grown-up version of Caroline who still just sounded like Caroline. It sounded and didn't feel out of place on our show, which was different toned, and it was like written with a little bit of a mother's love for this character, which was so special.
I completely forgot that I wrote that, and that was really sweet, and they were so good too. She and Joe together, I mean, they were wonderful.
Yeah, and I mean, Julie blows me away all the time. I think I'm wordier than you are, and so when I read your writing, you have an ability to simplify a very complicated feeling that I would take a half a page to explain, and I always think that's magical. But there are times, and I like a lot of words, and there are times when you have big, epic, long speeches, and I think that Elena, after Jeremy died, you know, that sort of almost like an exorcism of her grief was just so beautiful, and I think probably very personal to you. So that's the one that stands out, I think. Thank you, that's a great question.
Oh, okay. Hi, I'm Kelly. What you just said actually perfectly leads me into first thing I wanted to say was I actually lost my younger brother, and we used to watch the show together. And that scene, when I go back and I watch it, just fills me. What you called it, an exorcism of grief. Like that's really what happens. You are just so people. It's hard for me to watch that, but I just want to say that that was so beautiful. It's probably the most real depiction of shock and realization that I've ever seen. I'm sorry, but that's not even my
I'm so sorry for your loss, and thank you for like being
Thank
brave
you.
and coming up and talking.
Thank you, but that's not even my question, actually. My question is a lot more lighthearted. My question is just for Julie. For some reason, I'm bad luck with whoever I ship, they never end up together.
Me too.
Never. So my question is, obviously Damon had done so many just questionable, unforgivable things, like truly unforgivable. Someone did that in real life, it just would never work out. Was there ever a point in time where you were making him do something where you're like, I don't know how he's gonna come back from this, or was there ever a point where you're like, maybe she should end up with Stefan? Like, is there a chance? Just because I didn't get it, honestly. Love the story, but didn't get it.
Yeah. I, so Kevin and I have talked about this in the press a lot, which is that, you know, after the first season, everybody was so obsessed with Damon. And, you know, we had a long game. Obviously, it's a love triangle, so we always knew it would start with Stefan, it would move through Damon, and it would come back to Stefan, and that was, like, going to be the arc of the show with maybe a few other, you know, little dalliances along the way, but that was in our mind kind of what the path would be. And then ultimately, the original ending of the show that Kevin and I came up with in season 2 was that both brothers would sacrifice themselves so that Elena could be cured of vampirism and live a life as a human and grow old and have a family and all those things.
Matt Donovan?
You know, maybe that part I don't remember, but probably, to be honest. So everything that we then did was born out of a desire to both kind of understand and play within a chemistry that was very clearly happening on screen between Elena and Damon, and try to slow that down as much as possible. So we had him do some terrible, terrible things because we wanted to slow the roll of that relationship, and it backfired on us in the hordes and the masses, because everybody, for some reason, which shame on all of you, like, just loved Damon more and just felt like he was more misunderstood and more worth like that redemption arc. And so it became really difficult to continue to like write the kind of kindness and loyal strength of a Stefan and Elena romance when there was this super combustible like fireworks happening in the other scenes. And then when, you know, then when Elena was gone, we really wanted Damon to like lose himself, realize he couldn't really be the hero that he thought maybe he could become for her because he didn't have her. and we wanted Stefan to kind of be the one that would bring them back out of that, you know, like that Stefan and Damon became the true love story of the show by the end. And so we had him do even worse things, which made people want him to be happy even more. We were going to kill Damon in the finale. That was I know. That was the original plan, was that Stefan lives, Damon dies, and it was actually Kevin Williamson who was like, now why the hell would you do that? So I mean, I could talk for hours about it, but the funny thing is I actually kind of agree with you. And what's amazing about this show, you know, everybody's always talking about remaking the show or rebooting the show, and I'm like, why? Like, how could you do that today? Like, you can't celebrate a Damon Salvatore today. Damon Salvatore is a character trapped in a different time, in a different moment, in a tone of gothic, bodice ripping, you know, we'll call it in its own way, you know, strong women sometimes like to be controlled by a stronger man kind of thing, you know, like there's a lot of that was very specific to a very specific time and is harder to do now without it seeming, frankly, like toxic male rape culture. So I don't know why anybody would want to take another stab at it because it would be too hard. But I do love my Damon, let's be clear. I love Damon. But that was a hard arc it's a hard relationship to avoid when all said and done, because people just wanted it too much.
Thank you for the question.
Thank you. That was a better answer than I could ask for.
Do you feel vindicated?
I do.
Make this quick because I got to remember to get another photo off. But the strike's over with. Both, oh, you got it? Okay. Both, well, a little bit more. Okay. The strike's over with. The writers, shows, everything like that, you guys are back to work. What are three of you working on together? Can you share that with us, please?
Well, Julie and I are working on a show together. I would love for Marguerite to be working on it with us. She's a very busy lady. Julie and I are working on an adaptation of one of my favorite YA novels called We Were Liars. We're doing that for Amazon Prime. And it's been a joy to be back in the Julie camp and where it's nice and safe and warm.
I am at the moment pitching a couple things, but we, you know, as writers, you work together and you work with other writers and then you work together again. Julie and I will work together again 100 times. We're not doing it right this moment, sadly, but with deep, deep love in my heart, I would work with these ladies till the end of time. And I'm gonna throw
Thank
stuff on
you
the
so
floor.
much.
Enjoy the photo op. Who's it with? Fantastic.
Hi, I'm Quinn. So my question is for all of y'all, what is the longest and toughest episode y'all had to shoot and it just was not working out and it took longer than expected? Or it's just tough to get through?
All right, so I have a long list, but I'll start with the first one, which was episode 106, which was the 7th episode of the first season, which is the Halloween episode that ends with Vicky dying. Vicky getting killed in behind the buses. We shot that, and when we got the first cut of it, it was so bad that I thought, well, we've ruined the show. It's like the show's over, that was fun. Everything up to this moment has just been a nice fantasy. It was dreadful. And I spent a long dark night of the soul, literally at 3 a.m. in my office, looking at it and thinking about it and thinking about it and figuring out what could I do to fix it, and tearing things out and rewriting new scenes and moving pieces around. If you go back and look at, hi Chris, if you go back and look at that episode, you will see you will see that there are scenes that are actually shot during the day that I have put in at night because they were inside and I was like, the audience probably won't notice. There are characters wearing wardrobe from the previous day and scenes on the next day. I didn't care because I was going to do anything I could to salvage the episode, and we ended up reshooting that scene on the porch at the end of the episode where Damon shows up in his James Dean t-shirt and Elena asks him to compel Jeremy's feelings away. And that whole scene made the episode, and the whole episode came together and became Lost Girls and Haunted became the two episodes that everybody points to as the moment when the show went from being like a curiosity to people to being a successful hit for people. And so that was my first of many, many, many horrors.
I don't think I have any real horrors. The Roswell pilot, we had to do some reshoots on because it was too long, but that's the story of my life. But nothing that has ever been like really, really bad. There are ones that have felt really long because we were, you know, Roswell season 1 finale, we were in rain and lightning and stuff, and we were shooting that in December in Santa Fe, which is extremely cold, and so there's been some that were hard, but nothing pops to mind that was crazy.
Yeah, I mean, the last thing we did was in Spain, and I could go on until next Sunday and talk about how hard that was, but that's not what we're talking about. I would say for me, for originals, the same, après moi, la deluge, there was a scene that we really, really challenged. We were like, we're writing this. Where there was rain and fire at the same time at the end of it. Remember in the cemetery, and we just knew how cool it would look if we could achieve it. So it was Fletcher, our guy, had to we just somehow these guys made magic, but it was really wet and really cold, and the actors were really cool about it. And it turned out so beautifully, but I know it was a lot of people making magic out of art, being like, I bet you can do this.
Fire and water together. Who would have thought it would be difficult?
I know, but they did it. I was like, I don't know how they're doing this. Chris Grismer directed, and it was beautiful. So it was worth it.
Sir, thank you for the question.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, sorry, I'm Sheila.
Sheila.
I had a quick question. I was just
Shelley.
wondering, Sheila.
Shelley. Shelley.
Sheila. I was wondering who of all the shows in this universe was your favorite villain who killed his family and put Elena to sleep and also lost his head multiple times? Like which of those villains would be your favorite of the Sheilas? Thank you so much. I love the show.
Not ringing a bell. I mean, we made a lot of episodes. We had a lot of villains.
You can just name any of them. Any of the ones that did all those things, you could be your favorite, maybe.
I mean, it probably wasn't one of the ones that started with a K, though.
I don't remember any of that happening.
Yeah, sorry.
Are you sure you're talking about the Vampire Diaries?
Yeah, thank you so much for your answer. I appreciate it.
Kai Parker, ladies and gentlemen.
I love it. He came over with like a security detail.
What? Oh. Ooh. Right there? You can talk around him. We don't care. I mean, that's fine. We can all
We can do it without the speakers.
Oh, the speakers are blasting them.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So we've been here 15 minutes, and they want us to be done so that Paulina can sign. Is there a way that we can figure that out?
Okay.
Awesome. Go ahead.
Let's keep going as long as we can.
Hi, I'm Sheila's kid. And I had this question earlier, but I didn't have time to ask it. But as writers, what is something that you guys knew that you had to write for the sake of the story, but as fans of the story, you didn't want to write emotionally?
Cammy dying. Hated it. Wrote it, but I hated it.
Haley dying. It was brutal. It was really brutal. She was beautiful in the episode. She couldn't have been better, but it felt sad.
Elena leaving the show at the end of season 6. Definitely. Wasn't my first choice.
There's a lot of stuff like that. Like, you know, life happens and actors need to move on, or like, I don't know, budget happens and you gotta change something dramatically that you like really loved. One thing I will say is there have been a million times where I felt like I would rather cut my arm off than write this thing, and it always works out okay. It always, down the line, I'm like, oh yeah, it worked, we did it, so Eventually, it's okay. But sometimes I would rather cut my arm off.
Awesome. Thank you guys so much.
Thank you.
Hi, my question is two parts. The first part is what fan reactions led to a change in the storyline that wasn't planned? And then other than the Damon Elena that you just talked about, and then the other part of the question is what are things that the cast members or the actors pitched to you that wasn't planned that you accepted and took on?
I bumped into her outside and she asked me to ask this question on the last panel and I forgot about it. Because I didn't have my notebooks, I didn't write it down. So I'm so glad that you got to ask it.
I mean, if I had $1 for every time Matt Davis asked to be the bad guy or be in a relationship that lasted longer than 3 episodes or other things, I'd be wealthy. I think, God, you might even know this better than me. Like, I think that, like I mentioned before, the Damon and Elena relationship, having to sort of get to that a little bit sooner and staying a little bit longer than we'd ever intended, definitely was a result of fan interaction.
I think that the one that popped into my head, when we started the originals, Mike Narducci, who is the best, but he was very determined to like leave this sort of high school world of the Vampire Diaries behind, and he did not want Caroline to ever be on the show. And I think that when we got to season 5 and y'all still wanted it, we were like, give the people what they want.
Yeah,
and it was a joy to have her.
Narducci left the show after season 4.
Julie was in charge again.
And I came back to take over the end, and I was like, oh, it's happening. And he's still mad at me, I think, to this day. Because he's just a really smart guy, Narducci, and like really lovely, really thoughtful storyteller, and really believed that the integrity of the originals needed to sit in a world that existed outside of the Caroline universe. And but then he left. And I got to do what I wanted.
It was so special to me to be able to write Caroline at the end. I think it was in the backdoor pilot Salvatore School episode where they sort of like, she says to him like, you were a villain but you weren't the villain of my story or something like that, and it was like actually really valuable for the mythology of Klaus and the trajectory of his relationship with his daughter to have somebody say that to him. So not mattering.
Also, like, I was a Caroline Stefan person from day one. Like, the minute I saw the chemistry between them in episode 201, then that was my long game. Figuring Elena will end up with Damon for a while, Stefan will end up with Caroline, and that's just how that's going to go. And then Klaus happened, and that was so shocking to see that work as well as it worked. So it's so creepy.
I mean, that's really creepy.
Yeah,
But
it's so hot. Yeah. So I became Caroline after the fact, but I never wanted to compromise the power of Stefan and Caroline. So it was really important to me that like we always honored her love for Stefan and her marriage to Stefan and their life together, as short as it was. Even as we were able to indulge in our sort of fantasy, fangirl, our own inner fantasy fangirl of giving the Klaus and Caroline thing. It's due.
She wore her rings around her neck the whole time on the originals, and it was like an important character thing.
I don't have anything extra. I feel like what you said, where it affected Klaus. I loved Klaus as a character so much. And I feel like the purity of his love for her, even though it was creepy, I was like, I don't know how to get around this. And then I was like, oh, it's the purity. She's this ideal to him. And it meant something to see this guy who lived so long and seemed so bitter and cynical in some ways to have that pure burning fire, which he got also on the show in other ways, but there was something really wonderful about that. So, yeah.
Thank you for the question.
Thank you.
Hi. Hi, my name is Lexi, and this is my best friend Hannah. And I just wanted to, long story short, we used to literally go over to her house because I didn't have cable every week to watch new episodes of Vampire Diaries. And then we had an awful falling out after high school. And the only reason we are here right now is because you brought Joe back on Legacies, and I happened to DM her after she had me blocked. We weren't following each other. DM'd her the video and was like, nobody else is gonna get how significant this is except for you. So my question is, how did you ever expect this to be as impactful? Because really, like, we wouldn't have our relationship. We traveled from different parts of the country to be here. Like, she lives in Vegas, I'm from Pennsylvania, and we came here just to see you guys.
Oh my God.
That's a great story.
I love that you're close again. Don't lose it again.
No,
You
never.
have one. That's
Never.
it. Okay.
I cried at the last panel just about this very thing, which is the stories that everybody has about the friendships that they found through this fan community. Starting back in the first season, it was really just, hi, and hey. I think it's beautiful. I think that like having a shared experience when you love something on television, we feel that way about Friday Night Lights.
Yes.
You know, and other things like when you get to like live those things together, it's so great. And then to be able to, for us to know that that moment in the show actually brought you guys back together is really meaningful. So thank you.
Yes, thank you so much. We've been living our 15-year-old dreams this entire weekend, and
Yeah.
we can never thank you enough. Thank you. And we're gonna see you later, Marguerite.
Hi, my name is Sydney, and my question is for Julie. When did you first discover the Vampire Diaries books, and you were like, "This is what I want to make. This is what I want to write about. This is what I like to show about." Like, what was your process?
I didn't discover the books. They were given to me based on a conversation I was having at lunch with Kevin Williamson and our mutual friend Jen Breslow, who at the time was an executive at the CW. And we were just hanging out and having a good time, and we were talking about, I had just read all the Twilight books, and I was really talking about how much I enjoyed the books. And Kevin had been watching True Blood, and he was talking about how much he loves True Blood. And we were talking about vampires in general, and how probably like there was no room for another vampire show. And then Jen was like, "Well, I hope that's not true because we're trying to develop this vampire show based on these books." And so she sent them to us, and we both started reading it. And I got like 30 pages in, and I was like, "Kevin's gonna hate this. Like, it is Twilight. It is exactly Twilight. Like, he's not gonna go into this genre to like rip off somebody else's success story." But then I called him and I was like, "You're gonna hate this, but like just think about this town, and this town is like a hot spot of paranormal activity, and all the small town. You gotta hit Kevin in the heart. Like small town is his jam, and just think about all the things we could do with like a coming of age family soap, and with all these really cool opportunities for like the supernatural stuff to happen." And he just was like, "Yeah, you know what? Why not? Let's give it a shot." So it had less to do with love for the books actually, as it did a real like love for the genre and wanting to work together and figuring that we could build something that could stand on its own outside of the Twilight footprint.
Thank you.
Hi guys, Carina, hello again. Julie, Marguerite, I'm Sneal. Yesterday, Carina mentioned how much of a mentor, Julie, you were on her journey of becoming a screenwriter and a showrunner. And as someone who has been so inspired in so many ways by you and the show to embark on that journey myself, I'd love to know any advice any of you can give me on that journey.
I mean, I think you should give your advice. That's the best advice.
Oh, which part? Oh yeah. Oh yeah, this is good. Okay. I learned this for myself, and it really worked. Which is the first and foremost, the thing that you have to do is you have to declare your intentions. You have to say out loud, put it out in the universe what it is that you want, which you've just done, by the way. So congratulations. You say out loud, "I want to be a writer," and you say that to everybody that you talk to, and it will be inevitable that somebody that you talk to will say, "Oh, you know what? Like, my friend is a writer, and this is how she got her start," or "My cousin married a writer, and let me see if he'd be willing to talk to you for 10 minutes." And if you wear it on your sleeve and you wear your heart open and say, "This is what I want," opportunity will just organically start coming your way, and then it's on you to take that opportunity and to make of it what you can. Yeah, you can talk to some guy who maybe wrote some shitty thing, like got paid once to write and then never wrote again. Is that going to help you? Yes, actually it is, because it's going to give you a reflection of how hard it is, or what you could do differently. the more that you are hearing other people's stories and networking with other people, the more you will start to carve your own path. Now, the easiest path for anybody is to move to LA. Easy,
Did
haha.
that 2 months ago.
Quote unquote, right? You move to LA,
Yes, I
great.
did.
You move to LA, you get a job. Get any job. I say this. Like, don't sit home and write, actually. Write when you can, but go out and get a job and be in the world of Hollywood and meet other people who are trying to do what you want to do or trying to make their way. Because those are the people you'll grow up in this business who will become your peers and your friends. And if they find success, they too will find success for you. Write as often as you can, and always don't just settle with one script. You wrote one script, now you're done. No, just keep writing. Always write scenes. You don't have to have 10 scripts in your drawer. You can have 2 scripts in your drawer, but constantly be like it's like the equivalent of taking an acting class and working your craft. Work your own craft. You don't have to pay somebody to learn it. You know, there's resources. If you're in LA, my favorite thing to do is to go to the Writers Guild Foundation Library in the Writers Guild building. You do not have to be a Writers Guild member. You just need a driver's license. You can go sit in there. They have copies of probably 90% of the television scripts that have been made in the last 20 years. You go up, you like fill out a little slip. You're like, I'd like to read every episode of Buffy. And they will hand you an iPad that has every script that has ever produced of Buffy. And you study and you read. And I mean, I could go on, but I would say, and if you want specificity, go get a job in an agency. It will teach you nothing about writing, but it will give you all the context in the world, and if you can survive it and network with those connections will turn, if you say, really don't say this in your interview, say you want to be an agent, but then after that, secretly tell people, really what I want to do is be a writer, can you, and then you start taking it, all of that in, and you find your way to an agency desk where you work for an agent that represents writers, and then suddenly you know writers. There's lots of different ways to go through it, but LA has a lot of barriers to entry financially. It's really hard to survive there monetarily right now. We're working on ways to like open the doors, but a little bit wider. But if you can afford to live there and be there, then that is your best course of action.
Thank you so much, and I want to correct myself. I am a writer.
Yes.
I don't want to be a writer.
I was going to say that too. If you write, you're a writer. And I also think that this is sort of, Julie said a lot of this, but like, I had to sort of get into this mindset. As a writer, no matter where you are on the ladder, how successful you are, your job, a huge part of your job is to be learning all of the time. When I sort of like put my brain into the mode of like, every minute of my life is a learning opportunity. If I'm watching a movie, I'm dissecting the structure. And if I'm talking to a person I've never met before, I'm like, who does a job I've never heard of, I'm filing that away that job exists because it's interesting, and the things that you absorb become your arsenal for creation. When we are faced with a story problem in a room, my brain just starts going through every movie or every show I've ever seen that has said that. So your sense of observation of the world around you, and actual learning, actual reading books about writing, like actual, if you can take a writing class here and there, I think I love writing classes still, like, but just look at the world as your palette.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. Please.
I have like one thing to add, which is Michael Narducci, the guy we're going to talk about who we love, used to say something horrible, because people would ask him for advice. He's like, you just need to write a script that's undeniable. And you're like, I hate you, because that's a ridiculous thing to say. But I think the kernel of what that is if you ask me, it's undeniably you. So we can all enjoy the shows that we like, and we want to emulate them, because there's a structure there, and there's the voice. But your voice, because it's uniquely yours, will be the best thing that you can try to get on the page, so that when we read it, we're like, ooh, I want this person, because she's popping off the page. I hear her brain working. So it's more important to be authentically you than almost anything else on the page. So just remember that. Don't shy away from your own specific voice. Structure is structure, but just keep your voice really alive on the page when you're working on stuff.
Thank you guys so much. It truly means everything.
And good luck.
Thank you.
are you? So my question is, when you're writing, how do you find your character's voice? And when you eventually cast your character, do you write for the actor's cadence, or do you want the actors to follow the cadence you envision?
I'll start with that because I write with a very specific meter in my head. I'm more of a Shonda Aaron Sorkin, where all my characters kind of sound the same in the beginning, and then I help them find their voices once they're cast. Because I like to, when I know the actor, I like to then write in their rhythm. So I'm looking for people that can read my words and say it in the sort of, in the symphony that I hear it in my head, because then I know that they connect to the literal rhythm. And then the more I get to know them, the more, like Caroline Forbes is Caroline Forbes because of Candace, not because of who we put on the page in the first 2 episodes. I did not, I can admit, introduce the brilliance of Damon Salvatore to this world. It was Kevin who had all of those witticisms and funny one-liners and all that, and then I emulated Kevin over the years. But that's not really, if I was teaching writing, I wouldn't necessarily give that as advice. That's just how I work, so I'll hand this over to these two.
I always want my actors to talk faster because I want to fit more words into less time all of the time, which sometimes doesn't work. But I also write to a very specific rhythm, to the point that I'll write stutters into my dramatic speeches because I want the character to go, well, I love you. And I want them to say those, to feel, I want the reader to feel that stutter on the page if that's where it goes. So I'm a very specific voice, a specific cadence. I have to specifically make an effort to make characters' voices sound different from each other. Because Julie and Aaron Sorkin and Shonda Rhimes, I also have a specific thing that I think I want to default to. But I will go back through my script and be like, do all of these characters sound like themselves? And what are the hallmarks of each character's voice? The originals was a really good training ground for learning to write different voices, because you had somebody like Josh, who is funny and sarcastic and observational and speaks in a very modern way. Somebody like Haley, who has a very different kind of modern voice. And then a whole lot of people who had a very specific Michael Narducci, Julie Plec originals, amalgamation of 1,000 years of vocabulary.
Yeah, all of that, and I would just say I actually come at it sort of differently. I have that thing, probably coming as an actor, I really, really want people to have something to hold on to when they're first seeing it. So I have very specific characters in my head as I write. Then, if an actor comes in and does something, I'm like, I'm in love with what they're doing, and then I'll adjust, because of course. But there's a million, you can see there's a million ways to go into it. I do very much write like that. I like that specificity of, or because even if that's not what an actor does, they get what the intention is. So there's it's cues, because you know what? That's not what is on, that's not the finished product. The thing we watch is, so I always feel like it's still just a template. So, yeah.
Thank you so much, I really appreciate it.
Hi guys, so nice to meet you. I'm sorry my previous question about where this panel was previously taken, so I had to come up with a new one. There's so many iconic places to visit from the show, and coming to see them for the first time really just felt so heartwarming. So my question is, for all the amazing places you guys have been to, what's the one place that you've gone back to and brings you a lot of nostalgia, or you look back on fondly?
Every time I walk into the town square and see that the Mystic Grill is actually a restaurant now, I get a little thrill, because it wasn't a restaurant when we made it, when it was a lawyer's office, and we just put a sign out there that said Mystic Grill, and then we built this restaurant itself on a soundstage. So it was not, we never went inside that building the whole time we shot the show. And then along the way, the lawyer's office burned down, and the town decided to make it into a restaurant and call it the Mystic Grill. So I get a real kick out of eating at the Mystic Grill because it was not a thing that actually existed for us, and it exists now because of us.
That's so funny. For me, it's the my office, sheriff's office on the square, guys. I still believe that that is my office. I know other things happen there, they say, but it's really my office. And then the other thing is when we were first shooting early in, sometime in season 1, I don't remember, not that far in, but we were airing. So I was early for a night shoot, and they didn't have the coffee ready yet, and I was like, I need some coffee. So I went into the scoops, looking like terrible, and got mobbed in the scoops. And I was like, whoa, this show's kind of a hit. Because I was like, I'm in scoops, just trying to get a coffee, and it was me and Susan. We were just like, well, we can't get out of the scoops. Now we're going to be late for our call. So I was like, this was like, it's kind of like, so I have that memory of like, how big the show was from that moment.
I get really emotional seeing in Mystic Falls in the town square. Even though I didn't really work on that show, I started my career as a journalist coming, and it felt really special. And also, toward the end of the show, there were 2 different episodes that Julie directed that I stayed in. I was, doing something over on the original set, and I stayed in town longer to like hang out and watch Julie direct and shadow a little. And being in that town square, those night shoots in the town square were always so fun. Like, there's always tons of people, fans. Like, you gave a speech the very last night that you guys shot there, kind of saying goodbye to the town. And it's really special that we get to come back. Like, it's amazing. But for me, we shot Roswell, New Mexico in Santa Fe, and I fell madly in love with Santa Fe, and I go back all the time to like look at the sky and feel feelings.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Katrin. My question for y'all is...
Do you want to know what we smell like?
I
She came up on stage and we did a blind, she wanted to know what cologne people were wearing, and Charmin brought her up on stage that there was a blind smell test of all the actors.
Oh, no, it was awesome. That was awesome. But I was wondering what's any projects that y'all have read that y'all are the most proud of? Like what are y'all most proud of that y'all have written in y'all's career? I can't speak, I'm sorry.
Listen, the two best things I've ever written, I don't know if they will ever get made, but they haven't been yet. One is a pilot about a boy band.
It's the best script.
so
I love the
good.
script so much.
It's
I
really
agree.
fucking good, and if any of you have a $10 million, $15 million sitting around, I'll make this pilot right now. And the other is a period piece that takes place in 1885, Austin, Texas, when there was a serial killer, actually, on the loose, murdering black domestic workers. And I wrote a pilot with my friend Aisha Tyler, who's very famous, and I'm so proud of it, and I really want to make it.
To the end of times, my greatest pride outside of course, the shows that brought you here today, is Containment. It only lasted 1 season. It was taken before its time, but it's an adult show. It didn't need to rely on love triangles and monsters. It just was a really good, I thought, thriller, character piece about people trapped in a quarantine during an outbreak. And this was in 2015, maybe too ahead of its time.
Is it streaming anywhere?
It's still on Netflix, I think. Yeah, check it out if you haven't watched it. I love that.
Great.
Chris Wood was in it. I love that show so much. It makes me feel so proud, and I wish it was still on the air.
It has one of the most unexpectedly sexy kissing scenes I've ever seen in my life. I will leave you with that.
I'm so sorry, I don't know how to answer that question, because I think in TV so much stuff is a group effort that like it feels like I can't say, but there's some stuff that I feel really proud of and love, but it feels very TV. So I'm just
Now I feel like a jerk. No, that was
no. I just mean like I couldn't pick. I feel very proud of a lot of things, and a lot of people.
There's this saying that like a lot of writers say like I hate writing, but I love having written. I think having pride in your work is really important, because if you don't look back at it and like kind of fall in love with yourself a little bit, you'll never have a reason to do it again.
true. That's so true.
Thank y'all.
Thank you.
By the way, these are some really excellent questions.
Yeah, these are so good, you guys. Thank you. This is really fun. I'll sit here all night.
Hi, I'm Shannon. I wanted to know what it was like to kind of develop the character of Davina Claire, and Danielle Campbell is such a powerful actress. I don't know if you ever worked with her or not, but I just kind of want to know what it was like just working with her and how she really embodied that character.
That was another one. Like I had this character in my head of I knew exactly what I wanted it to feel like. You know, this young girl sort of on the cusp of like that line right between childlike innocence and barely burgeoning sexual awakening. Barely. So that like in the little girl dresses and the girl trapped in the attic, you get this sense of like how innocent that itself was, but there's this like young woman in there that's dying to come out. And Danielle came to the audition and looked like Katie Holmes, and we all remember Katie Holmes in Dawson's Creek first episode, like exactly the same feeling, where she's like a little girl on the cusp of maturity and adulthood, and it just felt like she embodied that so perfectly for me. And then Carina and Marguerite got to work with her more regularly.
Yeah, I thought she was wonderful to work with. Just great. So pro. She was 16 when she showed up on set. She was literally a child. But I wrote.
17.
Was she 17?
Yeah.
16 maybe when she was cast, because I know
Maybe.
yeah.
She missed her prom to do the pilot. Like,
And I wrote that episode where she uses that little drop of blood to heal Elijah, and he goes, ugh, and I remember that was the first time I worked with her, and it's really delicate, kind of fairy tale-ish, and it could be terrible, like it could have been terrible, and I was like, oh my god, she is like on the money, and she always was, and I loved her and Marcel so much together, so I loved anything that had to do with those guys. I just thought she was delightful and still is to this day, and I loved that character.
I bought her first shot of whiskey or tequila when she turned 21.
My first birthday party was fun. Danielle is one of my very best friends in the world, and it's funny because when we met, like, she was a kid and I was a whole grown-up, so it's really, like, been very, we've only gotten closer as we've gotten older, but we're, like, very, very close. And last year, 2 years ago, Candace and I went to New York to see her on Broadway, and she just blew us all away. She's really become, I mean, she was always extraordinary. She works so hard on her craft. She's really a thoughtful actress. She just takes everything as an opportunity to learn, and I cannot wait to someday work with her again. But speaking of, Davina, we met her, she's like in a night dress. Danielle wasn't even sure how old this character was supposed to be. She's like, am I playing an 11-year-old? Like, what? Where do you want me? But then I got to write her first sex scene with Cole, and she wanted to kill himself and then me. And I was like, it's time, like, come on. She's like running a faction of witches, like, let her get laid. And it's been really fun. It was really fun to sort of take her from this, like, little waif of a girl in an attic to, like, a powerful leader in the New Orleans community.
Narducci is also an Italian man and the father of 2 daughters, and he
One of whose name is Davia. So he was really connecting these 2 people in his brain way too much.
He was having some Papa Nerduch difficulties watching this young woman come of age on our show.
I think we're ribbing him a little. I loved working with him so much, and it was so important to me that he, like, think I was good at my job. So if it seems like we're giving him a hard time, we love him.
Well, thank you all so much. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Who else should we talk about? What's the tea? You guys coming?
Hi, thank you. My name is Emily, and my question was, Lexi said earlier in a different panel that if she could change anything about her character, she wouldn't have died. And if she didn't die, how would you guys have developed her as a character throughout the story?
Well, the good news is everybody who dies can come back to life, and I think Lexi was one of the first reasons why we made that rule. That we were talking about it yesterday. That character was such a perfect breath of fresh air at exactly the moment the show needed it.
because it was, 7 episodes in, and Stefan had this very like stoic, rock solid, moody, broody vibe. That seeing him lighten up and smile and laugh and have a good time, it was such a great pivotal moment for the Stefan character. So then losing the person that made him that way was so powerful. I don't know that we would go back and not kill her, because that kind of was so character defining for Stefan. But I do sort of wonder what it would have been like to explore a longer run outside of flashbacks, Lexi, Stefan, friendship.
I shipped it like so hard.
Yeah, I definitely. I don't know why we didn't do more with Lexi. I think we kind of created a rule for ourselves that even as we were bringing people back constantly, like we really wanted her only in flashbacks for a while, and then we kind of broke that rule when we got to the other side stuff, because it felt like we could.
Because she came back to help
him
Stefan turn his humanity back on.
Exactly.
And then me and my best friend were just watching that episode this morning, and we just wondered, like, how pivotal would it have been for him if she actually, like, came back?
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of different roads we could have traveled that could have, like, we always pick the road that would give us the most story and help us, like, make our jobs easier so that we had, like, episodes that were easier to come up with. And at the time, it was, to be honest, probably Ariel was on another show, would be my guess. Because she was always constantly working, she was series regular and everything, so getting her at all was always a little bit of a scheduling thing.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Hello, my name's Alize, and Marguerite, I just want to say thank you for coming back. I was at the last convention, and I absolutely adore you. And my question is kind of a fun question. I love Buffy the Vampire Slayer. That's like my other favorite show. I know, Julie, you're a huge fan. I'm not sure the rest of you are, but if you can choose to bring any character from that world into the Vampire Diaries, which character would it be?
Spike.
I didn't watch it.
I was gonna say you're gonna hate me. I don't know it. I know it. I've watched it a little, and I didn't watch that much of it, so I don't really know it really well.
What about anyone from the originals into the Vampires? Like, if you could have brought them sooner?
I loved so many characters from the originals. Carina, over to you. I'm gonna think for 1 sec.
The originals into the Vampires.
Oh, Legacies. We could have done.
Every single character's name just exited my brain all of a sudden. What just happened? What'd you say?
The Necromancer.
Necromancer is the guy because I was like, oh, I forgot to say the Necromancer. I just loved him. He's a really good actor. He was also hilarious in that way about like hilarious. Like Kai was so brilliant and terrible but funny. I love a brilliant, terrible, funny villain.
Yeah.
Oh, Josh. I would put Josh in the Vampire as well.
Yeah.
That's easy. Done.
And I would have loved to have.
I would put Josh on every show.
Yeah, totally. I would have loved to have Kai and the Necromancer work together. Like, just to be two sidekicks, like, in villainry.
Yeah. I would have loved to see Davina and Barney work together.
Oh, yeah,
So
absolutely.
fun. But,
Absolutely.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
But Spike.
Hi, I'm
I have that hat.
I bought it because I saw that you had it.
I wear it like every day on the strike picket line. It's very sweaty now.
I just wanted to say thanks to you guys for doing this. My mom brought me here, and she brought me here so I could see you guys. Like, the cast is awesome, but I'm so excited that you're doing this. So thank you.
Thank you.
So I want to be a writer, or I am a writer, and my question is, it seems like there are so many things that are easier than being a storyteller, and it seems like the world is often telling us that there are things that are more important than stories, and so I wanted to know what your guys' personal reasons are for kind of persevering on this path and committing your life really to telling stories.
I always answer this question the same way, and it sounds like I'm kidding, but I'm not. I've literally never been good at anything else. I haven't. I love this. It's really hard, and during the strike, I really did sit and think, like, okay, this industry is changing. I don't necessarily love the way it's changing. What else could I do? And I do not have an answer. Uh, it's just like in my bones. I don't know how to fall in love with anything else.
I think whatever's going on in the world, there's a lot of really important things that go on in the world. But you know how we know they're important? How we shape the story of what is going on in the world. So what is more important than shaping that story? And you can shape that story by writing for the news, and then you tell the story of what's happening in this hotspot or that hotspot. That's a great way to tell it, journalism. And then there's a way to shape how we react to that story by telling stories about loyalty, and telling stories about being on each other's sides, and stories about not otherizing people, and stories about how there's room for everybody. And what's a better thing to do with your life than to try and expand people's consciousness in whatever way you want by telling stories? That's what we do, all of us. And some people get paid for it, thank God. And some people do it and will get paid for it. I believe in my heart with all you guys. You want to do it, you do it, you follow this great advice. But there's nothing, it is important. It's not only just why do it, there's so many other important things. It is important in and of itself. But honor that when you're telling your stories. Recognize the responsibility of it.
I love you so much.
Yeah, no, I
worship you.
I agree with that so much. I got involved in a little bit of a social justice movement a couple years back, and one of the talking points from that movement was how, specifically gay marriage was very difficult to get through the legislature because there was a lot of resistance to it. And a little show called Modern Family has been pointed at as being basically single-handedly responsible for literally changing hearts and minds across the country. And if you can be a storyteller who is just writing a wonderful, delightful story about people who love each other, and those people happen to be same-sex, and then that show happens to be a massive, huge hit that everybody watches, whether they were surprised or uncomfortable by that idea or not, and then at the end of it, suddenly have this, like, yay, gay marriage vibe because of one singular TV show. Imagine what all the stories in the world are doing to shape and change the world. So the second part of your question is 100% good. Anybody who's like, there are more important things in the world, like, yeah, sure, there's, doctors and stuff, but, like, we are doing a service in trying to make the world a better place for sure. And specifically for me, I faced some stuff as a kid that, that I didn't know how to process emotionally. And so I didn't know how to cry, and I didn't know how to, like, be in touch with my own grief, or I didn't know how to be in touch with my own emotions. But I would watch TV and a commercial would make me cry, or I would go to the movies and a movie would make me cry, and a good episode of TV would make me cry, and I realized, like, I have this outlet for my emotions that I can't experience in my real life. But when I watch them on screen happening to other people, I get this catharsis, and I get to have this emotional experience that I really need to have. So as a writer, I just wanted to be writing the kind of stuff that could open the door for other people to feel that the true emotional response to grief or to loss or to loneliness. And it was really important to me to, like, be a portal for people's feelings, I guess. And so I think that to make that less personal, it's, if you are going to be a storyteller, ask yourself, and you don't need to know the answer right away, you can kind of find it as you go, but, like, ask yourself, why, what do I have to offer as a storyteller? What's my point of view? What do I really want other people to feel when they experience my writing? And then always let live by that as your North Star.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Lala, and ever since I watched originals, I always wondered why Klaus and Haley never dated. And if they did, what would have happened? Because I think they had so much good chemistry together.
Did you see the episode where she was beating the shit out of him and they were covered in blood?
Oh, yeah.
I don't think it would have ended well.
I like that.
You probably know more than I do.
I mean, I think that there was, once we were on the track of Elijah and Haley, we didn't really want to do a love triangle like the Vampire Diaries had, and I loved writing scenes of Klaus and Haley together, like, so much. part of it was exploring the complication of um, somebody that you was in your life in one context and is now in your life in another context. And you know, I do think there was a lot of love there, really unspoken love, but it was really fun to write that stuff, to put it in the subtext.
I think it was never out of the question, and that like as writers, you always look at the paths you can take, and you know, obviously their connection between Elijah and Haley was built into the first episode, so that was, you know, that was the first plan, and Klaus had Cammy, which was his first plan, and then of course always Caroline in the ether, and so we just kind of kept waiting for the moment that that road might want to shift, and it never shifted in that direction before the show ended. Had the show carried on, who knows? It could have happened in its own way down the line.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Callie Castle. Yes, I legally changed my name based off Lucian Castle because literally to them, because I am Team Trinity all the way. So my question is, I know that originally Aurora was going to be the big, quote-unquote, big bad of season 3 of the originals until Rebecca Breeds booked a pilot. So my question is, what was Lucian's original plot line going to be on the originals if that had not happened? I know they were building a romance hopefully with Freya, but I was curious what the plan had been.
I do not remember.
She booked it. Did we lose her?
Lost her to.
No, it wasn't Clarice yet, was it?
It wasn't Clarice yet.
The pilot was never made. She just had to go film the pilot.
It was never aired. The show never went. I do remember that. I don't remember. I'm so sorry. I don't remember what the plan was.
Then I guess I'll ask, why did you throw Tristan in the ocean?
Because he ripped Jackson's heart out.
Oh boy. Oh boy.
I was real mad about that.
Yeah, I liked Tristan as a character. I thought he was really interesting. I think we were in the, you know, it's a season-long villain, and by the end of the season, we want to vanquish the villains, and so his days were numbered from the jump. But she was still messed up about that many years later when she got back to Legacy. So he got his like emotional closure at the end.
Well, thank you guys so much. Like I said, Lucian inspired my whole name change, everything about myself. So I really appreciate you.
Have you met
writing.
Andy? Did you get to
One day? It will happen one day.
He's a good guy.
But
He's great.
I've ordered cameos and done a virtual meet and greet, so he does know. Thank you guys so much. You guys are amazing. Have a great night. Happy holidays.
Thank you. You too. Yeah, Candace is still.
Hi, Candace. We love you.
Wait, am I supposed to be somewhere else? Hi, my name is Jasper Garcia. That was my best friend right there, so thank you very much for your kind words. And additionally, thank you very much for what you said about how important storytelling is. That's basically my raise on that point, so thank you very much. But on a much lighter note, my question is, with Legacies, you kind of turned the TVDU into a big old mythical kitchen sink, which is one of my favorite things ever. So what I want to know is if you could take any of the supernatural creatures that were in Legacies into Vampire Diaries or the originals that weren't there originally, which would you pick?
The funny thing is, when we first started doing Vampire Diaries season 1, with our original staff of writers, before we shot anything but the pilot, we had plans for a lot of that. The monsters. We had plans for a gargoyle coming to life. We had lots of conversations about creatures, up to and including shooting that Matt Donovan's mom, Kelly Donovan, was a succubus, and it would like when she kissed people, would like suck their souls out of them. And it took us a little bit too long to realize that like it wasn't really tonally the direction that we wanted Vampire Diaries to take. We didn't want Vampire Diaries to be a creature feature kind of show, and so we stripped out all those things. But you know, before I was a huge Buffy fan, and so Legacies for me was the opportunity to finally get to do all that sort of Buffy fun Monster of the Week stuff that just never would have worked on the other two shows. It was like Legacies existed in its own little supernatural tone bubble. But if you ask Brett Matthews, his answer would be the merman, of course, because that's his favorite character. And I think Krampus could have done some damage. And the gargoyle, I mean, that thing is scary as shit. So I could have seen that going through the streets of New Orleans and really wreaking some havoc.
All right, well, thank you very much. You guys are awesome. Thank you so much.
Thank you. You're awesome. Thank you.
Hi, my name's Nicole. Nice to meet you all. You guys.
Hi, Nicole.
So I have a question. When you're writing the different storylines, I know there's the fantastical, different things like the hollow, have to figure that out. Really love those, but my favorite are usually the smaller human moments, like
Same.
the two characters sitting in the car, or just the romantic, everyday stuff. So I was just wondering, which one is your favorite to write, and if you had a favorite, like specific scene that you can think of? Do you like thinking out the more crazy stuff, or?
I hated the mythology every year. I hated it. And every year we'd say, let's not let the mythology cannibalize the whole show. And then every year we would screw that up. And by the end of this year, we'd be like, well, we did it again. There's too much mythology. Thank God it's the end of the season and we can
God, remember the unsiring? Like, we had to go through this whole rigmarole to unsire them because somebody on the Vampire Diaries once was like, they're sired.
Yeah.
That was so
I mean,
messy.
to the day I die, I never want to hear the words to hollow ever again. Like, all that.
I could sense the shiver. The minute she said hollow, I was like, I could feel it, like, coming this direction. I can just say, I can't remember episodes, but I found myself really loving writing Klaus and Elijah, always, always, always. If there were the two of them. And I really loved writing Klaus and Tammy because they were really, there was a maturity to that relationship that felt, and there was also this kind of alchemical thing that they had with each other as actors. So you could write really interesting subtextual stuff for them as well as sort of on the nose stuff, and they always were really wonderful. So I love writing because I like those kind of scenes too. Mythology makes me insane. I thought it was going to go crazy. Sheriff Forbes didn't know. I mean, she was a little, she didn't know what was going on all the time. So I didn't really know all the mythology. Then I go into original season 1 room, and I'm like, so wait, what? So well, how does that work? And I was like, oh my, I had to catch up to all the stuff that I had not.
I was like, sit down. Let me explain.
Thank God Carina was there. If Carina had not been there, because about every 2 minutes I'd be like quietly typing her. Wait, what is that? What's the thing with that? So I had to catch up to it, and it took me a while. But so I agree. But all that stuff is why you can hang all those scenes on it. It's all the fun stuff, So, but I hear you.
So we might lose Marguerite, and I think the rest of us will get kicked out in a few minutes. So why don't we take like 2 more questions, and Marguerite, if you have to.
Wait, I want to answer that one real fast.
Oh, sorry.
The human stuff that pops into my mind that I really loved. It's like really small, little, tiny things. I think the biggest, like, I really loved writing Josh and Aiden and figuring out their coming out moment, kind of. That was really special, really important to me. The other thing, and it's going to sound really sad, but there was something about Jackson and Haley and how much he loved her, even knowing how much more she loved Elijah, that felt very honest and human and sad and hard to write, that I really loved. I really sort of, I've been in that position where I just love somebody so much, I will just take their scraps. And it was very cathartic to be able to write it and put it on the screen.
I remember in early Vampire Diaries days, it was really hard to break story that wasn't Damon, Stefan, Elena. It wasn't involving one of the 3 of them. It was hard to get those beats to win at the end, to stay in the script. And I wrote the kiddie pool, the scene between Caroline and Matt Donovan early in the season where she's, sort of saying how insecure she is and she feels like she's not deep, she's a kiddie pool, and he says something nice to her, and the first spark of that romance was born. And I used to love writing all those little bits and bobs where, like, you could see the beginning of the relationship as it was about to happen, and you was planting those seeds. And that was always my favorite thing to do.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Love you guys.
It's like those side characters, like, maybe because the stakes were lower, it was like kind of fun. Hi.
Hi, my name is Jessica. I'm from Germany. And with my friends over there, we think the bigger love story was Bonnie and Enzo. So the question, quien shake the last 7 years? Was there a bigger reason or something for Bonnie to avoid?
You know, it was, at the time it seemed like a really good idea. Um, you're always looking for ways to take characters and to do things with your characters that you haven't done before. So there was a little bit of like wanting Kat and Bonnie to be able to go dark for a while and be bad. Because she sort of hadn't had her run at that yet, you know. There was needing Stefan to do something really, really horrible when his humanity was off. There was a lot of things going into it, like wanting a really, really powerfully dark thing to happen. And then it just so happened we were shooting on that scene on the day after the 2016 election in a house that used to be a plantation slave house, and suddenly it just all felt very wrong, and it's sad and not in a good way. And so it's painful and beautiful, and I loved watching Bonnie come out the other side of that grief and move on. But I don't know if we would do it again. I don't know. When else had done it, actually felt kind of mean.
You are also vindicated.
We can keep going until Marguerite has to go, I think. It's fine. As long as you guys are interested. Okay.
I mean, I feel like we're entertaining all these people in line.
I know, exactly. It's better than standing there for 2 hours doing nothing.
Hi, you guys. My name's Alyssa. I was just wondering what was the point of writing the whole Cure storyline, and why.
Sorry, the who?
The Cure.
Oh yeah.
And why you only created one, and like what would have happened if there would have been multiple, and multiple people would have had the opportunity to take it. So if you could elaborate for that.
There was like this.
What was the point?
The memory. There's this memory that.
I didn't know how to word it. I'm
yeah,
sorry.
No, it's so bad. There's this memory sticking in my head, and I could be making this up. I literally could be making this up, but Kevin really didn't want to make Elena a vampire. He knew we had to, but he didn't really want it because he knew that would change everything, and that the show could never kind of recover its innocence. And there was this moment where we were talking about like, well, how could we do this without losing like the heartbeat and the soul of the show? And he's like, God, but if she's a vampire, there's no going back, there's no going back. And then somehow the question became, well, what if there was a cure? And he sort of perked up. And then it was like, but if there's a cure, then we're negating the entire premise of the show, which is, you know, vampirism shouldn't be curable.
Yeah.
Like it's an eternal curse.
Yeah.
And so then it was like, well, what if there's only one cure? But then it came like, okay, if there's one cure, what if it could be transferred?
Yeah, that's.
So, but then you, if you take it from someone, the reveal is that it kills them.
Yeah.
Then that just started generating more story opportunity. And when you get that deep into a show, we were like, at this point, like 5 seasons in, you know, then you're like, great, we have something that people want.
Yeah.
We have obstacles for how to get it. We have a mystery about what it is, and we
It
have
was the
then
Moonstone.
stories for days about how to like, you know, how to make it happen for people. So it actually was a huge story generator when all said and done.
We used to have a joke on the originals that like, okay, what's the Moonstone of this episode? Like the thing that everybody's after. Cure was a great Moonstone.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you guys so much. I appreciate you all for writing the most amazing show in the world. Thank you.
Hi, my name's Cassie. I just wanted to say that all the different hopes that were on originals were like the best casting I've ever seen in my life. So I want to know, how did you guys find Baby, Summer, and Danielle? Did you just get lucky, or what was that process like?
The baby was lucky.
Okay.
Straight
Not
up
that lucky. That baby cried so much. There were 2 of them. They're twins.
I know they were
And
twins.
they were, when they should be crying, they were sleeping like angels. And when they should be sleeping like angels, they were just losing their minds.
They were damn cute. Damn cute. Summer was actually controversial because she was clearly such a good actor, but in my mind, she didn't look anything like either Haley or Klaus. So I kept looking for something that felt like a little bit more of a match, but it became undeniable that she was just really such an extraordinary actor. And then it turned out to be the best the best choice that we could have made. And then I give Carina a little bit of credit for hope for Danielle because we were in the writers' room watching a sea of tapes that I'd already seen and had sort of been like, yeah, some of these people are pretty good. And Carina was like, well, who's that? Because she's the one.
She looks like their child, literally.
Yeah.
Danielle.
And then
And there was something that ended up looking like there was something that ended up working between her and Summer. Because I recently rewatched the episode where we brought Summer back. That was the murder orgy one. We had Summer in a scene, and then she turned into Danielle, and it actually weirdly, surprisingly worked, even though they don't really look alike.
Yeah.
I thought that Summer was absolutely extraordinary. Writing for her, there's a little moment when she first meets Klaus, and she's coloring, and he's trying to talk to her, and she just quietly slides a piece of paper over to him, and Summer just fucking got what that moment was.
Yes.
And it was unreal to watch that on stage. I was like, or on set, we were at that safe house. I was like biting my fist in Video Village, like, holy fuck, this is gonna be great. And it was.
Wow. But yeah, Danielle, I just want to know, how did you find her? Like, did she come?
She auditioned.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And you just were like, oh my gosh, like, she just looks so much like them. So I just wanted to know how that.
For me, it was I watched this little scene she did in Aloha, the Cameron Crowe movie, where she's in a ballet studio dancing, and her dad is on the other side of the window, and she tells an entire story in her face without saying a word. And when I saw that, I was super won over.
Okay. Well, thank you so
She's
much.
also, like, just to talk her up, she's an unbelievable actress. She's a great leader. She just graduated with her master's in business. I was sitting in a car with her when she got accepted to college as a 17-year-old, and she is just like an extraordinary young woman who we were so lucky to find.
Yes.
So lucky.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Hi.
Hi.
So I have met both Julie and Marguerite separately, and we talked about how much I love Vampire Academy with our friend J. August Richards.
Thank you.
So my question is, because you guys wrote such great stuff for him, so I know there's talks of trying to maybe have it come back. If it does, is there hope for Victor Gashkov?
I always believe there's hope for everybody. And we played him very differently than he was in the books, and I thought that was really important. And we immediately, that was baked into it from the jump. It wasn't like because of him, it was because we don't believe in villains that are just villains. And also he was a little sort of mustache twirly in the books. Like I didn't understand who he was. And then all of a sudden being this guy who cared about his kids and had all this bigger life and a bigger political agenda. He was like the quintessential guy who did all the wrong things for all the right reasons. So of course I believe that there would have been another chapter for him.
I actually have a two-parter question because you mentioned Spike earlier. So, is there anything that you guys would want to write that you could slip James Marsters into, or that would be a good role for him?
I always have him in the back of my head. I've had to, instead pivot to David Anders, who gives me Spike vibes, so I can keep working with him too.
Fair enough. Thank you.
I have to run, guys, so I'm just going to say bye before a little early. Okay. Okay, good. I love you. This was really fun. Thank you.
No, so I don't know how true it is or how accurate it is. I heard that if Nina hadn't left, she was gonna like find her way back to Stefan, and then Stefan and Damon were supposed to die, and she was gonna end up with McDonald.
Stefan and Damon were definitely
We
supposed to
just
die
started that
together.
over 5 minutes ago?
Yeah. No, that's true. No, it's true. I don't know about the Matt Donovan of it all, but the original ending that we had planned before Nina left the show was that Stefan and Damon would sacrifice themselves to cure her from being a vampire so she could have the life that she wanted to live. Which has kind of ended up being really the ending of the originals instead. So it worked out.
I'm glad you didn't know.
Thank you.
Hey guys, my name is Renata. So the hunter, Raina Cruz, was she ever supposed to be a doppelganger? Because Damon had a comment and he said that she was super similar to Elena.
I don't think so. No, I actually don't. But I don't remember that comment specifically, so I could be wrong. But in my mind, I think they were totally disconnected.
Yeah, because she was also like dressed very similar to like Catherine.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
Okay, that might be one of those theories that was not a theory.
Okay, so then.
Not that I recall. Put it that
Okay,
way.
cool.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi. I was wondering who you think is the strongest witch between Bonnie and Freya.
Bonnie.
Yeah, I mean Freya, which was sort of like her backup plan, over 1,000 years, whereas Bonnie is like generational in her soul. So I would go with Bonnie. Sorry, Freya. Thank you.
Hi. I heard you came up with the Gemini Coven idea because Candace was pregnant, but I was just wondering, like, did you know about, like, or think about, like, Kai and Joe's storyline before you found that out? And did you know ahead of time that you wanted to do, like, the whole prison world and to have, like, Alaric and Joe get married?
Definitely our whole Gemini coven plan, was meant to be a season 6 story. That would, be the thing that links Kai and Joe together, and then would end, of course, tragically. And then when we started breaking story for season 7, we had a pitch that involved Alaric learning that his babies were in some random person's body. So we thought that could be an interesting twist for Alaric. You get to season 7 and you start pitching some really crazy shit, right? So we thought, oh, how interesting for Alaric. Like, he's mourning the loss of his one true love, but then all of a sudden, and he's going to end up being a dad, and he's going to be a dad who, and now it raises these twins, and maybe there's a new love interest in whoever this woman is, who's carrying his witch babies. And then Candace calls out of the blue and was like, surprise, I'm pregnant. And we were like, oh my God, because our plan had been that season 7 would be the season where Caroline and Stefan really fell in love. And, it ended up being that way regardless eventually. But that was really the game plan for season 7. And so we were just kind of reeling because we were already deep into talking about the season and we'd already broken a lot of stories. And so we just kind of started randomly pitching. And so I don't remember who it was, maybe me, and if so, haha, but it was literally like, well, what if that woman that has the babies in her is Caroline Forbes? And I remember calling up the studio and the network and being like, I'm about to pitch you the most bananas thing I've ever pitched you, but bear with me. And I pitched it to Mark Pedowitz at the CW, and he was like, believe it or not, you pitched me more bananas things. I actually think that's a really good idea. So that's how it all came to be.
Thank you. Hi, I'm Jacqueline. If you could be any character from the Vampire Diaries, who would you be and why?
Caroline. I don't know, I just love her. She was always my favorite to write for. She's fun. I always thought she was pretty.
Like, if we could be the character and, like, live as the character?
Yeah.
Or, like, act as the character?
Like be.
Like, be Catherine.
Ooh, naughty. Yeah, that's good. Yeah. I'm still Caroline, but I like Catherine.
I feel like I'm closer to to Caroline in real life, and I don't have any Catherine in me, and I would like some
Let's be
Catherine
real,
in me.
I'd be Aunt Jenna. That's really, that's where I'd end up, for sure.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm gonna pop in and ask one. So in the originals, when you had like the town people, and then you had the priest, and he was really more like a patsy for the supernatural faction. Had you thought of like developing that kind of Catholic mysticism into things to combat the supernatural?
we always try pretty hard to stay away from like specificity of a religion. Like we definitely let like voodoo inform a lot of our New Orleans witchcraft in the originals. We definitely love the idea of Father Kieran representing sort of the Catholicism arm of the voodoo history. But none of us wanted to get too deep into. I always said I never want to say there's heaven and a hell, which is how we end up with The Other Side and Cade on the Vampire Diaries, because we didn't want to make it about God and the devil. Even the devil that we created was not really the devil; it was a witch mythology. So, do you remember anything other than that?
Religion, the Catholicism stuff was like always way over my head, to be honest.
Yeah.
I just killed a priest. or no, at his funeral. Todd likes to remind me, I see Todd all the time, he played Father Kieran, and he just really likes to remind me that the only time we ever worked together, he was in a box.
Hi there, my name is Lily. As someone who's interested in writing, I always struggle with getting the ideas from my head onto paper and bringing that to life. I'm wondering, what's your personal preference for process getting those ideas from your head and on paper into a full story?
It's brutal and it's hard and I hate it. But I have to eat and put a roof over my dog's head, so I do it. I know this is like, this sounds harsh, but like, Starbucks, like, you know, a Subway sandwich person doesn't get to get sandwich block. I don't get to get writer's block. I have a deadline, so I have to do it. And it is also about not worrying about it being perfect. Just get it out, and then you'll fix it. But if you're worried about it being perfect the first time you put it on paper, you will never write a word.
That is very true. I hate it so much so that every time I sit and think I'd like to write something original, I pivot and I do an adaptation of a book or a format, something that has existing characters and existing idea behind it. That comes very naturally to me in a way that sitting and generating something from scratch does not. So I feel your pain, and I agree with Carina. Like, if you don't have a deadline, create a deadline. By today, I need to have written the opening scene of my movie, my play, my whatever. By tomorrow, I need to have written 3 scenes between these 2 characters, and just keep hammering with the small, not the big, like I need to write 80 pages by next week. No, very small, baby step, little deadlines, because there does reach a point, as much as I talk about hating writing, so anecdotally, you know, people who exercise and they're always like, oh, when I'm running, like, first 20 minutes is always really hard, but then you get into a zone and then it's so much easier. And I'm always like, no, it isn't. No, it is never easy. Like, running sucks. Running will never not suck. I don't get into a zone when I exercise. But I have learned I do get into a zone when I write. So I suffer. But whatever the equivalent of my 20 minutes in, which often is like 3 days, but whenever I pass that hump and I'm actually writing, I do get into the zone, and most people do. And then suddenly you're not thinking about it. It's not hurting you. It's actually happening, and that's what you're trying for. Is the moment when you're outside, you're so no longer in your own head that your head is operating differently than anything else, and keep writing until you hit that. And you might never hit it because writing can suck for everybody always, but you will feel better about having accomplished something, and you will be able to decide, do I like this feeling of having accomplished something enough to make all the other feelings worth it?
Perfect, thank you.
Thank you.
Hello. Did either of you find there was one character that was more challenging to write for, as far as their personality or anything?
Stefan and Elena were always really hard to write on Vampire Diaries because they were the good guys, and it was hard to make them interesting episode after episode, which is why Damon always sort of thought, like, you know, was more popular. And it's really funny because a lot of people along the way watching Vampire Diaries didn't have a full love or appreciation for Elena in the way, or Stefan in the way that they should have. And yet the minute Elena was gone, you felt that loss so powerfully that people were like, oh, I should have appreciated Elena more. Like, Elena Elena, super easy. Vampire Elena, easy. Hero, ingenue Elena, super hard.
Elijah was hardest for me. I mean, Gillies and I have talked about this on panels and stuff. We, I often just felt like I was getting it wrong. And Gillies and I would have a lot of conversations about the lines, and I wanted to impress him, honestly. I wanted to get it right. I wanted to nail it. I never did. And every time you don't nail it, the next time you gotta write it again, it's in your head. Like, it was just that. It was just Elijah. Every other character on the show, I think I could find. But never really nailed the Elijah.
Thank you. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Vanessa, and I'm studying communications, and I love the media, and I want to go into production. So I want to ask, do you have any advice for me?
Do you live in Atlanta, or are you visiting here?
No, I'm visiting. I'm from Mexico City.
Oh wow, that's awesome.
There's a lot of production in Mexico
A lot of
City.
production in Mexico City. Like Julie said earlier, look for a job, any job that's adjacent, and just really keep the doors open. Learn all the time, and like Julie said earlier, tell people around you what your goals are, and don't turn away from any opportunities because there's a lot of avenues that can get you where you want to go. I mean, I came through journalism, and I never would have thought that this would have been the direction that where I landed, but that was the door that opened first. I went in.
Yeah, you can call the locations commission. You could say, hey, I'm interested in getting my foot in the door in the industry. Do you have volunteers at the commission? You kind of can start there, but you can also learn what shows are coming and movies are coming to shoot. You can then put your resume in for entry-level jobs on those productions. You can work at the location commission. You can work in locations specifically. Terrible job, everybody hates it, but it's a good foot in the door. Find different ways to get that first opportunity. Even if it's a million miles away from what you think you want to do, it's still adjacent, like she said, and that will lead you to someone or something that can take you to the next second job.
Thank you very much. Hi, my name is Diana. I also come from Mexico City. My question is, from all the TV universe, which is your favorite friendship and why? Like, what made it special or important for you?
Oh man, I mean, so many. I'll just start listing them, and you can interrupt when you think yours. I mean, I love Marcel and Davina. I love Josh and Marcel. I love. I love the brothers, all the brothers. I love Hope and Lizzie so much, so much. I love Alaric and Damon so much.
I'm so obsessed with all the romances. I'm like, they're all even my brain. I mean, Josh and Davina was wonderful and so special. Yeah, I think that's my favorite.
Yeah, and then obviously the core, the Bonnie, Caroline, Elena, early Vampire Diaries friendship, the sleepover, the way that they held up, each other and took, found each other for warmth and solace. Like, I love that so much.
Yeah, me too. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Sharon. My question is the Gemini curse. The coven died saving the twins, which made me feel like there would be really bad repercussions if they did not survive. And then on Legacies, you have Lizzie become a heretic, so she's technically dead at that point. So were there any possible plans for what would happen if they did not get the merge when they became of age?
That was a really, really, really hard story for us because you can't talk about there's going to be a merge and then never have the merge. But the merge happened age-wise way deep in the future.
Yeah.
So we knew it wouldn't happen for many, many years. And then we talked about, the way to do that would be at the very end of the season. Oh, she's back. Are you done already? Or you? Oh, good. Oh, good. Well, we should go soon. Yeah. All right, 5 minutes and we're out. Anyway, so, and then Kaylee left the show a year early, and then we were like, well, shit, now we can't do the merge. And then that just started, like, threw a wrench into everything, so I'm kind of glad that, like, we didn't have to figure it out.
Oh, so you didn't have a plan. Okay. All right. Well, thank
I think we hadn't come up with a plan, and then the CW got bought and canceled our show, and so we didn't have to, thank God, because we might have gotten ourselves in some trouble there.
Thank you.
Hey, I'm Mark from Nova Scotia, Canada. Thanks for putting us in there.
Yes.
At the Michelson Ball, when Damon meets Cole, and Damon says, hey, I think we met before. Is there a backstory to that at all with Cole?
Oh God, there was, and I'm pretty sure that we addressed it, but I don't remember, because we had this rule that we weren't allowed to reference stuff and then never call it back. Because we had a list of the things that we hadn't done it for, and I thought we got through everything except for the Sheriff Forbes letter and Aurora. But I am completely blanking. But we did it with purpose, and I feel like we answered it. But I'm so sorry, because I don't remember.
Yeah, I don't remember because I was like, was it in the 70s? But I don't think Cole was out of the box in the 70s.
It might be a screw up. I'm gonna have to research that. If I find the answer, I'll tweet it.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Hey, I'm Jasmine. So I have a question. So, was Catherine's origin, because she's from Bulgaria, but Nina is from Bulgaria too, is it based off because Nina's from Bulgaria?
Yes. Yeah, because we found out Nina was fluent. And then suddenly we were like, oh my God, how great if we can have this character speaking a completely different language. And it just made Nina like look like such a badass.
Did she translate her own scripts?
Nina, did you translate your own scripts when you were doing Bulgarian? Did you translate your own stuff when you were doing the Bulgarian? You did, right? Oh no, we had a translator.
Alright, thank y'all. Y'all have a safe trip back home.
Thank
And I hope
you.
you enjoyed your weekend.
We did so much, so much, so much.
I think we can get through the last.
Yeah, the line is now closed.
We got it.
Hi, I'm Kenzie. I've got a question. Did you ever consider exploring more of a relationship between Bonnie and Matt?
Thank you for asking me this question.
Thank
Nobody
God.
has ever asked this, and the answer is yes.
I love this.
So, I mean, whether anybody would have liked it or not, I can't say.
I would
But
have.
the moment that Bonnie and Matt had that scene in the pool
That's what I was
in
thinking, because
episode
she brought it
305, they had a spark there, and that planted it in my head that the end game for Bonnie on this show, like, our original plan was in the finale when we did all the, around the world, where is everybody now?
Matt was gonna go
We were gonna do like a 6 feet under style, see them later in their life, and we wanted to show that Bonnie had married Matt, and they had a whole family, and they had like multiple generations of family, and that the next like generation of Bennett witches was gonna, come of age.
Was there going to be a spinoff?
I mean, it could have been. There's always a Bennett witch, but then we killed all the Bennett witches, and then we didn't do the flash forwards in the finale. I mean, we sort of did the one at the end with sort of the stylized one with Elena and Damon, but like that was always her ending for me. Whether people would have liked it or not, I had that moment with them in that episode, and I thought, what better for Bonnie at the end of this long, horrible life where she's had so much loss, and where the supernatural has done so much harm to her, to find happiness in literally the most grounded, least supernatural way that she could live her life. So that was my personal
Thank you
thing.
so much.
Thank you.
Okay, hey, I'm Riley. So speaking of Matt, he was sheriff in the legacies and then he kind of just fizzled out. What was y'all's plan for that, or why did it kind of fizzle out?
The plan was to always be able to integrate as many people from Vampire Diaries as who wanted to be there and who were available. Zach was really game to keep coming back to play. But there were some times when we wanted it and he wasn't available, or there's sometimes when he was available and we didn't need it. So I I think it just kind of petered out after a while, and then we started, giving that kind of stuff to characters who could stick around.
And I don't understand why he got such a better car than Sheriff Forbes.
Exactly.
Come on, you guys, you remember that car? And when I was shooting in that car, you could not. No, that car was tragic. And I had to drive it. And you could not do the seatbelt. So it would be like ding, 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 ding. And you're like, okay, well, I can't do this. There's nothing I can do about it. And you're like, back it up in the dark all the way. And you're like, I can't, okay. And the thing was terrible. And it was really hard to get in gear. And it was terrible. And I was like, now that I'm dead, oh, I see. There's a new sheriff in town with a beautiful brand new SUV. I was so annoyed.
I thought of a better, sorry, did you finish that? Yeah. I thought of a better answer to a question from earlier about the friendships, the best friendships. That was probably to write, but my favorite friendship on the show to watch was Sheriff Forbes and Damon.
Yeah, Sheriff Forbes and Damon, yes. Yes, and yes.
I loved doing those scenes. Loved it.
So thank you so much. We've had a great weekend.
Thank you.
Thank you all for letting us talk about ourselves.
That was a nice walk down memory lane. Thank you, everybody. Enjoy the rest of your night.